Did you ever think that your anxiety can give you a superpower of productivity? And the answer is it can for everybody, and everybody can use it right now. And here's how it works.
Hello, my loves. Welcome back to the Lavendaire Lifestyle Podcast. It's Eileen. Today's episode dives deep into brain health and brain plasticity, how it is possible to grow and change your brain even as an adult. Learn about the top habits and practices for optimum brain health and how to create an enriching environment for your brain to thrive in. Our guest today is a renowned neuroscientist and expert in brain plasticity. I'm super excited to introduce Dr. Wendy Suzuki. Dr. Wendy Suzuki is the first Asian American Dean of the College of Arts and Science at New York University and a professor of neuroscience and psychology. She is a passionate thought leader, spreading the understanding of how we can use the principles of brain plasticity to maximize our brain's performance and transform our lives for the better. She regularly serves as a sought-after expert for publications including The Wall Street Journal, Forbes, and The Washington Post. Her TED Talk has more than 60 million views, and she is the author of 2 books, Good Anxiety and Healthy Brain, Happy Life. Hi, Wendy. Welcome to the podcast. How are you doing today?
I'm doing great. Thank you for having me.
Thank you so much for being here. Okay, I'm excited to get into this topic, but first, let's hear about your journey. I'd love to know your story and how you became this renowned neuroscientist and professor at NYU.
Okay. Well, I have a very, very clear beginning that started the very first day of my freshman year at UC Berkeley when I walked into a first year seminar class, small class with a full professor teaching their specialty. And the name of the class that intrigued me was The Brain and Its Potential. I had no idea who was teaching it, but I loved that title. And it turned out that I walked into a classroom taught by truly a renowned neuroscientist, an amazing teacher. In fact, she was the very first female to ever get a PhD in neuroanatomy at UC Berkeley ever, the very first female ever. And it turns out that she also discovered brain plasticity. I didn't know that at the time, but she was such a compelling teacher. I remember she had a hat box at the front of the classroom on a desk. And as she was telling us why and explaining why the human brain is the most complex structure known to humankind, she opened up that hat box very dramatically. And with her gloved hand, she pulled out a real preserved human brain right there in the classroom. And I mean, we had never seen a human brain. Everybody went crazy. This is amazing. And it wasn't because of that. I mean, that was cool. That was the coolest thing I ever saw in any of my classes. But it was her description of the experiments that she did to just show that the adult brain could actually change and grow depending on the kind of environment that you put that brain into. That's called brain plasticity. She discovered it. And I walked out of that classroom saying, I want to be her. I want to do what she's doing. And that was the start of my journey. And, I went to graduate school and postdoc, but if it wasn't for that class, I would be doing something very different right now, I think.
Oh my God. I love that story. I love that you have a clear start. That's what sparked your interest. Did you ever get to thank her or let her know? I'm just curious.
Yes, I did. So I worked in her lab.
Oh my goodness.
And so, she was at the graduation ceremony and I introduced her to my parents and we had a good, close relationship. But the thing that really reconnected me to her many, many years later, in fact, 30 years later, is that I got a call in my office when I was a professor here at NYU. And the woman on the other line said, "Hi, you don't know who I am, but you need to be in my documentary." And I'm like, really? Who is this? And it was a documentary filmmaker making a film about that professor, Marion Diamond. And they were doing it the very last year she ever taught. And so I got to go to Berkeley and be interviewed as one of her students who went into neuroscience and, became a neuroscientist because of her. And then after that interview, I went and had lunch with her and her husband 30 years later and, really got to reconnect.
That's a full circle moment.
Yes, thank her and tell her, all the things that she launched in my life. So that was really very special.
I love that. I love feeling this passion from you as well, just on this topic. Okay, so why don't you get us started by giving us the basics? Like, what is brain plasticity?
Yeah, that's a great question. So, brain plasticity is this amazing capacity that any brain, human brain, mammalian brain has to change and grow in response to its environment. Go into a wonderful, engaging environment, and you will grow and the brain will grow and get stronger. But unfortunately, what goes up can come down. Go into a stressful, horrible, uninspiring environment, and actually things can retract and connections can be lost. So that is the double-edged sword of brain plasticity. You can create a beautifully a life that grows your brain into what I like to call a big fat fluffy brain, or you can go the other direction, which is not good. So that is the power of brain plasticity.
Amazing. And when you say environment, do you mean like the physical environment that like we're living in, or do you also mean your inner thoughts? Like that's also an environment, right?
Yes, yeah, all of that plays a role. In fact, I can tell you the classic experiment done by Marion Diamond, my mentor who discovered it. This was in the 1960s, and she and her colleagues. At that time, nobody believed that the adult brain could change. You grow and you evolve within your teenage years, and then once you get adulthood, no more change. And she said, I don't think that's true. There's no evidence to support that, but I really think that the adult brain has this capacity. So she took two sets of rats, kind of brother sister pairs of rats, and in one set of rats, she raised them in what she called an enriched environment. That environment had lots of toys, lots of other rats to play with, really big space. I like to think of it like the Disney World of rat cages. So they got to have fun in this Disney World of rat cages for 3 months. And the other rats, same, kind of brother-sister pair, went into what she called an impoverished environment. Now, both rats could have as much food and water as they wanted. But in the impoverished group, no toys, maybe only one other rat. Like us, rats are very social, so that's not the best environment to be in. And let them live in those environments for several months. And if the environment has nothing to do with the brain and doesn't affect it at all, then there should be no change, no difference between the brains of these two sets of rats, Disney World versus impoverished environment. What she found was the outer covering of the brain, which is called the cortex, was actually thicker. She was a neuroanatomist. She was able to actually measure the physical difference in the brain when they were raised in these enriched environments. And she and many others, including myself, have spent our careers trying to figure out, well, what is an enriched environment for me? I want an enrichment environment. What does my Disney World of rat cages really look like? And we know some of those answers, but that was the experiment that really showed that the environment could literally physically change the anatomy, physiology, and function of your brain.
Was she just measuring the physical change in the brain, or was she also using another measurement for like how the brain is changing?
Her tool at that point in that first set of experiments were all anatomical. She was measuring the size of the brain, but other studies have gone on to measure the physiology, to measure memory function, prefrontal function, all sorts of things. But it started with anatomy.
Ooh, okay. Very interesting. All right, time for a short break. Today's episode is brought to you by Lola V. With the weather getting cooler these days, it's crucial to protect our hair from dryness and breakage. That's why I'm excited to share about Lola V, the innovative hair care line by Jennifer Aniston. Since using Lola V, my hair feels healthier, smoother, and more vibrant. Their unique B Pro 3 bond technology derived from chia seeds is a naturally derived peptide bond builder clinically proven to prevent, protect, and repair hair from the signs of aging and damage, ensuring your hair stays resilient. I also recommend their exfoliate and detox scalp shampoo and intensive repair treatment for weekly care that truly transforms your hair's health. The cherry on top is that all their products use natural, plant-based ingredients free from harsh chemicals. Unlock Jennifer Aniston approved hair at lolav.com. As our loyal listeners, you'll get an exclusive 15% off your entire order when you use the code Lavendaire15 at checkout. That's 15% off your order at LOLAVIE.com with promo code Lavendaire15. Please note you can only use one promo code per order and discounts can't be combined. After you purchase, they'll ask you where you heard about them, so please support our show and tell them we sent you. Your hair will thank you. Next question, I guess, is given what you know about the principles of neuroplasticity, how can we as normal people use this knowledge to change our lives? I know you can go hours on this, but I guess give us the big points.
Okay, here are some of the most powerful tools we know to take advantage of what I call positive brain plasticity, that growth part of plasticity. And I start with the form that I've studied the most, which is actually physical activity. Did you know that every single time you move your body, taking a walk, walking to your car, take a walk down the block, you infuse your brain with a whole bunch of neurochemicals, including dopamine and serotonin and noradrenaline. I like to call it the bubble bath of neurochemicals. And that is not only going to give you better mood, because dopamine and serotonin, that's what antidepressants do. They up those levels of neurotransmitters. You're getting that naturally with movement, but it also increases things called growth factors. And those growth factors go to another brain structure, which is my favorite brain structure, the hippocampus, critical for memory. And it will actually help grow brand new brain cells in the hippocampus, making your memory work better. And, everybody needs a better memory, whatever you're doing. A podcast producer, neuroscientist, we all need a better memory. So that is, it does many more things, but that is something that really intrigues so many people.
So any type of movement, you mean?
For mood, just a 10-minute walk can improve. 10-minute walk has been shown to decrease anxiety and depression levels, which everybody needs today. To get the growth in the hippocampus and growth in other brain areas, your prefrontal cortex, important for focus and attention, is also a brain area that is improved with exercise. Brain cells don't grow. That looks like it's synapses, connections between already present brain cells are growing in the prefrontal cortex. And to get that, we know that the best way to do that is do a form of movement that gets your heart rate up. So do a power walk. Of course, soul cycle or running or, dancing that gets your heart rate up. Anything that gets your heart rate up, we know is effective at getting those growth factors up to grow your brain.
Amazing. Okay. And I guess I want you to kind of keep going. Are there other exercises or lifestyle changes that people can implement for like brain health and well-being?
Yeah, movement is one. That's not surprising. It's good for so many things, your heart, but it's so good for your brain. I'm going to go next to one that is deficient in so many of us, and that is sleep. Sleep, good 8 to 9 hours of sleep is what is really recommended, is so important for a number of different reasons for your overall brain health and also for brain plasticity. Number one, during sleep and the long, good 8 to 9 hours of sleep is when all of the metabolites in your brain gets cleaned out. So imagine if the garbage man doesn't come anymore. That's exactly what happens in your brain if you don't sleep regularly, long, regular sleep sessions. So you get gunk and metabolites built up in your brain, not good for overall health. Also, when you sleep and particularly when you dream is when your memories that you have encoded during that day get strengthened. So you wonder why, I can't remember everything. I'm so sleepy. I haven't done. It's because you cut off with your short sleep cycle the time during the day that your memories are being strengthened. And it also sleep is a great time and is essential time to help improve your emotional regulation. Anybody feel grouchy and not able to control their little outbursts when they don't sleep well? Emotional regulation is highly dependent on good sleep. So it could be considered easy. All of us who've tried to change our sleep cycles know that it takes some work, but I can tell you that and changing my exercise regime are the top two things that I've done in my life that I have noticed considerable, clear, long-lasting difference in my brain health. But that's not all. I'm a professor and dean at the College of Arts and Science at New York University. New learning, being challenged by new learning is great. And everybody says, oh, Sudoku? So is that really challenging? I mean, you know the sequence. I'm talking about learning a new language, learning how to play chess, doing those strategy things where you really have to use your brain in a new way. That has been shown to result in positive brain plasticity. And then I'm going to turn to the one everybody asks me about, food. What kind of food should I eat? You know, what are the supplements that you recommend? And I am a back to basics girl when it comes to food. I like to eat all my nutrients. And we know that the diet with the most science behind it for your body and your brain is the Mediterranean diet. Completely makes sense. Healthy fats, not a lot of red meat, colorful veggies, fruits, but also balanced. If you eat a beautifully colorful diet, you know, I'm not an MD and you don't have, underlying health conditions. You should be able to get beautiful nutrition that way, and certainly beautiful nutrition for your brain.
Right. Are you about also taking vitamins or supplements for brain health? I know that's like a thing as well.
Yeah, I think if you are eating a good balanced diet, unless everybody's a little bit deficient in vitamin D because of the sunscreen, which is also important not to get skin cancer. Also, as we get older, I'm taking calcium supplements because that is good for your bones, but also for your brain as well. I'm not saying no supplements are good. There are ones that have a lot of benefit, but I would say that all of the antioxidants in all of the colorful fruit, like blueberries and blackberries, really, really good for your brain. And I always like to promote the real food relative to the supplement that you take.
Yeah. I'm totally on that side as well. Like just eating your nutrients and food as medicine. Okay, so you brought up something I wanted to ask you about, like learning new languages. I love learning new languages, and something that you hear is that, oh, it's hard to learn a new language when you're an adult. It's so much easier when you're a child. Like, is it like how much of that is true versus can we really do anything right with our brains as we get older?
Yeah.
Because like I feel like we limit ourselves, right? We limit ourselves thinking, oh, it's impossible. I shouldn't even start.
No, it's absolutely not impossible. Is it easier for a 3 or 4 year old to pick up languages? Yes, it is, because they are at the brain development stage that was created for learning, verbal languages. Does it get harder? Yes, it does. It is absolutely not impossible. And I think it's getting easier and easier with all of the online tools that we have to do short little bursts of practice. I also think Netflix is helpful because I now watch so many more series in so many different languages. Not that I'm actively trying to learn a new language, but I do speak French. And so having all those French series easily accessible so I can listen to it and not look at the subtitles to really make myself work. So helpful. So I think compared to, 20, 25 years ago, there are many more tools to learn. And frankly, anybody who's learned a language knows that immersion works. And okay, so I can't go live in France right now, but I could find a French friend and then make a promise that we're only going to speak French together. That is the best way to learn. So it is not impossible. It takes some work, but there are tried and true techniques, and there are lots of tools out there to help.
Yeah. So you're saying our brain, even as an adult, just has all the capabilities to do it. It's just a matter of like resources and tools.
Absolutely. And practice. One thing I am an expert in is memory. How does memory work? How do you make your memory work? And memorizing is such a key part of learning a new language. Number one rule in trying to learn something new and make it stick: repetition. repetition, repetition, repetition. Some of these tools that we know won't work for language. Novelty is helpful, so it may not be the best for language. Association can help because if you build on themes of particular, vocabulary topics that might, and that's just a language learning category. Emotional resonance also helps people learn. So my secret that I will reveal is that I learned French really well because I had a French boyfriend when I lived in France. That was my emotionally, charged secret to really learn. And I learned how to flirt really well in French because I had a goal right there.
I love that. Let's take another quick break to talk about our sponsor, Honey Love. Wedding season is upon us, and whether you're attending as a guest, standing by the bride, or just stepping out in style for an evening, Honey Love has you covered. What I love about Honey Love is how their shapewear makes me feel. The Superpower Short, for instance, uses targeted compression to enhance your curves without squeezing them. It's designed to make you feel hugged, not suffocated. Plus, the breathable fabric and flexible boning ensure that I can move freely, no rolling down, no discomfort. Honey Love isn't just for special occasions. Their pieces are perfect for any time you want to add a little extra confidence to your outfit. From supportive bras to their Superpower Short that lifts and sculpts, Honey Love makes it easy to feel great every day. If you're ready to boost your wardrobe and confidence, check out Honey Love. Treat yourself to the best shapewear on the market and save 20% off at honeylove.com/TLL. Use our exclusive link, honeylove.com/TLL to get your discount of 20% off. After you purchase, they'll ask you where you heard about them, so please support our show and tell them we sent you. Say yes to every adventure with Honey Love. Okay, something else you talked about was putting your brain in an enriched environment. Can you go deeper into what that means, right? How can we create that enriched environment in our lives?
Yeah, that brings up another topic that I haven't talked about yet. So we talked about physical activity. Giving your brain that physical activity is great. But the other thing that is so good for your brain and for longevity overall is social connectedness. We have, according to our Surgeon General, there is an epidemic of loneliness in the world right now, and that is true. And so that makes all the social connections that we could make even more important. So having those, and I don't mean online. I mean, it's wonderful that we can do this on Zoom. I'm not dissing that in any way. But I also make sure to have person-to-person, connections. I stay connected with my friends. I make sure that I have those social connections because they always make me feel so much better. And we know that our brains evolved and are wired to help us interpret our in-person social connections. And that is such an important thing, a really, really important part of an enriched environment, which was in that first Disney World of rat cages. The Disney World had lots of other rats to connect with that had toys to play with and free food and water. And they didn't have sleep aids, but I'm sure the rats slept very well in their enriched environment. What other social connection? Yeah, this is where you have to study in humans. Stress reduction is a really important element as we talk about what makes a happy life and also what makes a healthy brain. And that's really important. Loneliness is a huge stressor. Financial issues are a huge stressor. What can you do to diminish those stresses in your life? Because that will also go a long way to give you that enriched environment, give you that healthy brain environment so that it can grow and thrive.
That also brings to mind the question of how much stress is there a level of healthy stress? You know how some people stress kind of motivates them to be their best, just a little level, but not obviously not too much, versus living a calm and peaceful, joyful life, right? Is it different for everybody, or is there I guess, what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, that's such a great question. So I think the important thing to know is that it is not normal to have a stress-free life.
Right.
Stress is important.
Exactly.
It is a natural motivator, and stress, and in fact, anxiety, the emotion that goes along with stress, is a great tool, teaching tool in your life. Whatever you're anxious about, what you stress about, that tells you what you value in your life. What do we stress about? Money. Oh, we don't like to talk about it, but so many of us are worried about money. There's nothing wrong with that. But on the flip side, it tells you that your security in a financial sense is really, really important for you. That is very useful for you to know. Without that bell and whistle of the stress and anxiety that comes along with, I had a big bill that comes out. You don't appreciate that. It serves a really important purpose. So stress-free anxiety life, that does not exist. And the goal is really to try and harness the power of that natural stress and anxiety response that we have to motivate you, to teach you what is valuable to you. I mean, I always use the example. I know that public speaking is often like the number one stressor for people. I do it all the time. And I always make sure, or I like it when I'm just a little bit scared before I start something. Like, I don't know what's going on. I have to really pay attention. Not terrified to take a step, but just that little bit of uncertainty. I could tell that it puts me into a state where I'm ready to answer any question that comes up, any take. And, my goal is for these kinds of interviews or talks to be as interactive and be as, giving as possible in this time. But I need that a little bit of scared in to give my best talk.
I think everyone can relate to that. And I just realized it's the topic of your book, Good Anxiety. And I want to point it out because it's right behind you.
Yes.
And I love going into this topic because I think people get confused about a stress, but I think a better way to word it is like challenge and discomfort. It's actually good for you, right? It forces you to grow. Tell us more about this topic of good anxiety.
Yeah. So, people say good anxiety. My anxiety is good. Might be good for you, but it's not good for me. But I think it's really useful to take one step back and ask, why would something evolve if it wasn't helpful for us? It would have disappeared so long ago, but no, it didn't. And was that just, somebody made a mistake, or something made a mistake? No, anxiety is a form of protection for us. If we didn't have those bells and whistles to pay attention to something bad that comes up, we wouldn't have survived. In fact, we survived because of our anxiety. And the trick is that it evolved in a situation when, millions of years ago, when we were, our ancestors, when our main stressors were physical stressors, don't get eaten by the lion, things like that. And our stress system and our anxiety system evolved to help us get away from those kind of physical, like life or death kind of situations. But as you know, I haven't been attacked by a lion any time in my whole life. But I do get a little stressed when I look at the news. At certain points during the last few months, I've been very stressed when I looked at the news. And my system hasn't evolved to give me the newspaper stress response. It just gives me the lion coming at me stress response, because that's how we evolved. And that's part of why we're overstressed in these kinds of situations. And we have to understand that as we learn how to regulate that a little bit better. Our protective system hasn't evolved as quickly as our news agencies and kind of information delivery systems have evolved. But it is protection, and I think recasting it, just like you recasted stress to a challenge, I want to recast, anxiety as a protective mechanism. And how can we use that? How can we use that to better protect ourselves and not feel the aftermath as much?
I guess, what are the practical ways that you help people turn their anxiety into that positive protective force? Are there any tips that you can share? How can we use it for good, I guess?
Yeah, so I'm so glad you asked that question, because I have a 3-step model to get from your regular everyday not so fun anxiety to good anxiety. And the first step is to learn how to turn the volume down on your own anxiety. Never going to get it away. It's there. It still has to protect. But sometimes I just need it to turn the volume down. And so there are so many different science-based techniques to be able to do that. And we've already talked about one. 10-minute walk can decrease anxiety and depression, feelings of anxiety and depression. Everybody can take a walk for 10 minutes. Even if you can't go outside, go down the hallway, go to a different floor, walk up the stairs. That will decrease your anxiety response right there. Other immediate kinds of responses, and my other go-to is breath meditation. Breath meditation, which is simply a fancy way of saying breathe deeply and slowly and with intention, like you do at the end of a yoga class. That is all it is. And you may not realize it. It's like, oh, you're just saying a yoga technique. No, I am pointing you to a technique that will directly activate your natural de-stressing system in your body. It's called the parasympathetic nervous system. And it is equal and opposite to the fight or flight system that everybody has heard of. That's called the sympathetic nervous system. And what the parasympathetic nervous system does at its full force, it decreases your heart rate, decreases your respiration rate. It shunts blood from your muscles because you don't have to run away from the line anymore towards your digestion and reproductive organs. So you can do those kind of weekend activities that you do with your digestive system and with your reproductive system. And it does all of that. And it slows down your respiration too. Well, I can't slow down my heart rate by thinking about it, but I can slow down my respiration. So that's a kind of a magical, quick way to de-stress your whole body. That's why breath meditation works. It's not a fancy, or magical kind of way. You're literally activating a major part of your de-stressing nervous system. So those are my top two go-tos to turn the volume down. And that's step one. So movement, 10 minutes of walking, deep, slow breathing. But then once it's turned down, you might not be a Zen master at that moment, but your stress is turned down. That's step two, is to really dig down and appreciate why that anxiety had been activated. And this is a call to action to appreciate what's on the flip side of your anxiety, which is what you hold dear. Worried about your relationships, that means you love your family. You love your friends. Worried about money, you, like so many of us are, you are concerned about your overall well-being and your quality of living. Nothing wrong with that, but sometimes it's helpful to look at the value side rather than the, oh my God, I'm just so stressed, I don't know what to do side, which is the response side. But then step three is my favorite step, because my book, Good Anxiety, isn't just about kind of learning tricks and little Band-Aids to decrease your stress response. My thesis there is that if anxiety is protective, shouldn't it give me something good, like bring something good into my life? And so my answer was, yes, it does. And I talk about the superpowers of anxiety, like what superpowers come with this emotion that evolved with all the other emotions, this emotion of anxiety. And so I'll give you two of my favorites. Superpower number one is the superpower of productivity. So did you ever think that your anxiety can give you a superpower of productivity? And the answer is it can for everybody, and everybody can use it right now. And here's how it works. So a very common form of anxiety is that what if list. What if I didn't prepare well enough for my interview? Or what if I, don't remember all the things? Or what if she asked me a question that I don't know the answer to? All those what ifs, very common form of anxiety. And so the trick to make it into a superpower is to turn each one of those what ifs into a to-do. Were you not prepared enough? Go over the script. Make sure you know everything about, or I know everything that you might ask. And for you know everything that I've ever done in my life. So you can ask me about it. Worried about what your answers might be. Well, go over what do I want to convey, to Eileen doing this. Make sure you have that in your mind. And I will point out something really important that people don't realize. So you don't have a, what if list about like the Netflix show you didn't see, you didn't get to episode 8, right? No, that's not important to you. You have what if lists around things that mean something to you. That's why this works so well. It's not frivolous to-do lists. These are to-do lists around things that you value. And so this is why it becomes such a true super power to use your anxiety to become more productive, because you're already focused towards those things that are of value to you. So that's one way, and that's one tool. And the last superpower that I'll describe is one that I think we all need more of, which is empathy. And so this one I realized, when you write a book about anxiety, you end up hashing through your own anxiety. So I share a lot about my own anxiety, my history with anxiety, and all the things I've been anxious about my whole life. Everybody has those long-term things they've always been anxious about. And I have always been shy. Not quite anymore. And I could go on shows like this, but growing up, I was shy for many, many years. And but I was also interested in academics. So I would go into the classroom and, I wanted to engage. I wanted to ask questions, but of course I didn't want to raise my hand because maybe I'd say something stupid and I didn't want to look stupid. And so I had years and years of battling with this, but still wanting to engage. I went into academia. So one day I found myself at the front of the classroom facing a whole bunch of students that I knew were just like me. Oh, I have questions, but even though she asks, she's trying to trick me and she wants me to say something stupid. Of course I didn't. And so I realized that I already did something. I brought my own anxiety into the classroom, and I didn't force people to ask, but I arrived early. I stayed late. I made it easy for any student who wanted to ask any question. Okay, you don't have to do it in front of the whole class, but just ask me the question. I'll give you the answer. And you might think, oh, well, that's just for you. But no, all you have to do is think about that anxiety that is either most common for you right now or you've had the longest. And you realize you know what it feels like, you know what it looks like, and you can spot it in other people really, really easily. And so the superpower that you have is the superpower to be able to reach out and help somebody else through the same form of anxiety that you have, because they're having it. And you might not have thought of, doing that, but I found the power of that in realizing what I was kind of automatically doing as a teacher and using my own anxiety as really it became such a powerful teaching tool for me in the classroom. But I love it because I can't think of anything we need more in the world than higher levels of empathy for each other and for each other's anxieties.
I love it. Okay, so I want to recap because there was so much good info. So the first one was like turn the volume down and with like maybe a walk, breathing
Yes.
exercises. And then the second one is like anxiety shows you what matters to you, right? Like what is important. I really like that because it's true. Like we wouldn't be anxious about something if we didn't care about it. And then the third one is like to turn it into superpowers. I kind of wish I learned a little bit more. I want maybe give us a little bit more superpowers, but the what if list is a good one. And then the second one is like empathy,
Right.
right?
Right.
Okay. So I love the what if list. I want to point that out to our listeners because like instead of spending all your time just worrying and overthinking, you can actually take action on something.
Exactly. It makes you feel so much better. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. That's huge because most of us we just live in our anxiety and all of it is just a feeling. It's just thoughts that like repeat over and over again and then you don't know what to do with them,
Yeah.
right? So now that we have a way to get them out and take action on them, that does make it better.
Yes, absolutely. And again, it's something that we could all do today. So
Mhm.
take your most common worries or the worries that you have right now and try it, write it down, and then do something about it and check it off. You don't have to worry about that anymore.
Yeah.
Full disclosure, I got this from a lawyer friend of mine, or it was a lawyer that I met at a party. And I told her I was writing a book on anxiety. And she said, oh, I'm a high paid lawyer because of my anxiety.
I love that.
And I said, really? Tell me why. And she basically said that she turns her anxiety, she's always been anxious, and she turns all her worries into a to-do list. And I'm like, can I use that? And she said yes. And so that turned into the superpower of productivity for my
I
book.
love it. So useful. Okay, let's move on. You talk about meditation as a big part of like your brain health, like brain waves and white matter. So can you tell us more about this?
Yeah. So, I think meditation sounds fancy and perhaps a little mysterious. The practice of meditation is really a practice of being able to focus your attention on something and keep it there. It's not perfect, but you want to keep it there. And why is this even more important today in our age of anxiety than it has been in the past? Because so much of our anxiety is like, oh, I can't stop thinking about that thing that's worrying me. It just, steals my attention and I can't grab it back. Well, the practice of meditation is being able to control where that attention, that is your mind's eye, goes, and we do not let it go and dwell on those worries. We ask it to focus on a breath or focus on. I love the practice of loving kindness meditation. We didn't talk about that, but that is a very powerful form of meditation where you basically meditate on the feeling of loving kindness. And the easy way, the beginner's way to get in is to think about, depending on your preferences, a puppy, a kitten, or a little baby. Whatever makes you go, oh, more, focus on that. And just that feeling that it engenders when you see a big pile of puppies just ready to be picked up. Focus on that, but stay on that. I don't care how looming your deadline is. If you can bring yourself into this state and determine, I want to focus on my breath right now. I'm going to focus on puppies right now. That is a very, very powerful thing. And basically, meditation is the practice of building up, not from 45 minutes to an hour and a half, from literally 2 seconds to 3 seconds. That is a wonderful practice to start. Eventually, you'll get up higher, but that's the biggest mistake that people make. They think, oh God, I'll go to that hour meditation class that I saw, and then they're a failure, and then they never go back again. No, you have to go to the 5 second meditation class in your own home with a YouTube video and pat yourself on the back after you've done 5 seconds cleanly, and you feel open, you feel kind of refreshed after that 5 seconds. That's the key.
I guess, have you learned what meditation does to the brain? I'd kind of love to learn more about that part. We all know it's good for us, but you're an expert, right, at the brain.
Just like exercise, regular meditation has causes positive brain plasticity. And here's what we know about exactly what meditation does. The first kind of putting it on the map study that came out was a collaboration a study helped by the Dalai Lama himself. Some of his monks went into a study and they looked at the electroencephalograms of monks meditating and versus bunch of control people that were about the same age that had literally 5 days of practice meditating. So they got some direction, and so they were asked to meditate. Huge differences in the electrical activity of the monks who had spent at least 10,000 hours on average meditating over their lifetimes. And there's a particular frequency of electrical activity that they found, the gamma waves, that were particularly enriched in these monks. What does that do? It doesn't mean, oh, they're better at math because they have better gamma waves, but it is higher level cognition. And so, clearly this was a manifestation of, there's a lot of evidence to suggest that this is a manifestation of all of that mind work, that ability to focus their attention, which clearly is so much better than ours. Why? Because they can focus their attention for hours and hours and hours and get deep into that process. That's not the only thing. Long-term meditation has been shown to enrich a brain area in the frontal lobe. Not surprising, that is the brain area that's important for focused attention. It's area 10, kind of right at the front of the brain. But I think what's more important to realize is it's not just like, okay, area 10 is my meditation area. There are so many brain areas that get involved when one is meditating. And I love going through these because it acknowledges the fact that even the best meditators, even the Dalai Lama has effort in meditation. And so when you study the brain areas of meditation, there are those brain areas in the prefrontal cortex, but also in the striatum that gets activated when you start to focus on something. But then there's also brain areas that are associated with, I just lost my focus. Sorry, what's that bird? I just flew past. And part of the cycle that they see is the falling in and out of focus. So it's not like you go from like my normal brain to, oh, suddenly I'm going to be able to do it for a whole hour with no breaks at all. Even the best monks, even the Dalai Lama will have a distraction but be able to come back in. And you hear that in meditation classes, right? Something might come to mind. You could acknowledge it, but just come back. That the practice of coming back is important. So there are widespread brain areas, including in the insular cortex, which is right, kind of right in the lateral side of the brain, associated with that focused attention together with the prefrontal cortex. There's kind of too many different brain areas that get activated. But the point is there are too many to list. There's not too many, but I don't want to give you just a word soup of areas. But the point is there is a huge network involved in when you are focused on something, but also another network that comes in when suddenly you lose focus, which is the human thing to do. And then you come back in. But all of that has been explored in functional imaging studies.
Wow, I love it. Thank you for sharing and giving us the details. Something else I want to make sure we touch on is creativity, right? Stimulating creativity, boosting creativity. So, what are the things that you've learned that can enrich our creativity?
Yeah, creativity is so important. It is something absolutely that can lead to positive brain plasticity. I'll start with the myth that if only one side of the brain is important for creativity, and your right brain.
Yeah, is the right and left brain just completely false? That like the creative side and the logic side, or is there truth to it?
The most recent studies show that the people that have the most creative ideas are always using both sides of the brain at the same time. So the extreme form of that myth is false. It's not only one side of the brain. Do not call yourself one-sided. The only thing that we know for sure that is only localized in one side of the brain is language, and that's the left side of the brain. Everything else, basically, I mean, that's why you have two sides of the brain. The vast majority of what we do, including creativity, is using both sides of the brain. One of my favorite studies is a study showing that somebody with a brain lesion suddenly got more creative because they were a painter. And their painting suddenly got more and more creative until the brain damage got so much that they stopped being able to paint. It's like, what is going on? Is there a brain area that when it gets damaged kind of unleashes creativity? We still don't understand exactly how this is working, but there are brain areas that are associated with creativity. And I think the important thing there is that creativity isn't about becoming Picasso. It's about exploration and curiosity. And I think that is my key to the element of creativity that is most important for brain plasticity. Because while we all can't be beautiful artists, we can all be more curious in our own life about anything that we're doing, about the things we're expert in, but also the things we're not expert in. And that is a core of creativity.
Mm-hmm. And what about I like exercise and creativity? Is that a link that you've looked into?
The link between exercise and creativity may kind of coalesce in my favorite brain structure, the hippocampus. So the hippocampus is really important for memory, but more recent studies have also implicated it in imagination, in imagining things that we've never experienced or seen before. And it makes sense when you realize that the hippocampus is there kind of laying down all our long-term memories. And so what this recent study shows is that it could also kind of put things in our memories together in ways that maybe we haven't seen in our memories, but these two things exist. Maybe I've never, I'm looking at a stapler in my coffee cup. Maybe I've never stapled a coffee cup together. Okay, that's not that creative because it's not that useful. But both things are in my long-term memory.
Right.
So we hadn't realized the hippocampus, not just for memory, but it is part of that imagination network that is so important for creativity. And so because I told you that exercise can actually grow and strengthen the hippocampus, we haven't showed directly that the hippocampus, like anything that makes the hippocampus better also makes your creativity or your imagination better. But that is a hypothesis that comes from a whole wide range of different studies that have been done.
Okay. No, that is so fascinating to me. Like the hippocampus is the place where you're like, I think you can grow your imagination by, like you said, enriching your life, exposing yourself to new things. And then it's like your brain can put these random pieces together. That's what creativity mostly is, right?
Yes.
You're just like piecing different things together to create something new. Oh, that's very interesting. All right, Wendy, are there any future projects or I guess research or anything that you're excited about right now?
Yes, I'm excited about lots of different things. I've been thinking a lot about what we talked about, that social aspect and the importance of connection and belonging for our mental health and our brain plasticity, and how to take better advantage of it. I just read this article this morning from a food reviewer. He was leaving the food reviewing business, and this was his very last swan song. And what he decided to write about is how we're losing what is so special about going out to restaurants, which is kind of one of the last places we can go to have meaningful interactions with strangers, the servers, but also with each other, because technology is coming in and trying to take away those interactions, and you prepay and you pre-tip and you pre-order. And so you don't even talk to, you have some, random, sometimes a robot, if you're in some of those restaurants, comes and delivers your food. And he was just lamenting that is one of the most beautiful things about that restaurant experience. And I think it's one of the most beautiful things about human experience. And while I'm not anti-technology, I use all the useful tech that I can. If it disconnects me from other people too much, that's where I draw the line. And I'm very fascinated with thinking about that, and thinking about that for our mental health and for long-term future, because we're headed towards a future where we are sealed up in with a Google things, and we're doing everything virtually, and we don't see people except for once a year. That is no way to live. That's not the way we were evolved, and that will hurt us. So that's what I'm interested in.
That's fascinating. And it interests me too, because on one end, you can't prevent technology from moving forward because it is convenient, right? The robots for everything is convenience. But I think we have to then create new spaces or new traditions or culture where people get together, right?
Yes.
Like, especially not just your immediate friends and family, but like with strangers too in the mix. That's also important. Because technology is taking it away, our like the society is changing, so we have to create like a new version that works for us.
Yeah, exactly. I think that's so important. And I think that's going to be a really important conversation in the future, and conversation for, technology companies. Like, don't take it away. Don't take more of that away. That is not the road to success. That's a road to
Yeah.
more loneliness.
Yeah. Yeah. I love that topic. Thank you for sharing. Okay, so one final question. If you could leave our listeners with a final piece of advice or wisdom about brain health or well-being in general, what would it be?
I will leave you with my top 4 tips for a joyful brain. So, after all of my different work and the books that I've written, these 4 things come to the top, and we've already talked about them. But this is what I put in my life to make sure my brain is happy and healthy. Movement, of course, move your body, exercise. Mental health, de-stress your life. And I just said you can't get rid of all of stress, but decrease the biggest stressors in your life. Sleep, so important. I think that has changed my well-being and mental health. And the 4th is reach out and touch somebody, reach a friend. That social connection, so important for our overall mental health. So
Amazing. Thank you so much. And then finally, where can we find you online?
I am Wendy.Suzuki on Instagram. You can also follow me and find so many of my podcasts and my videos on wendysuzuki.com. I just came out with a brand new course on masterclass called Brain Health. I'm so excited about it. So I lead that course, and we talk about things like brain plasticity and how to enrich your memory and how to become a super brain ager. That might be really interesting for people in your audience. And you can find that class on Masterclass. So those are the 3 things.
Amazing. How fun. What a great opportunity.
Yeah, I had a great time making it. That way, it was a fantastic experience.
That's so cool. Amazing. Okay, well, thank you so much, Wendy, for coming on today's show. Thank you for sharing your knowledge and expertise. I'm inspired to use some of these tips that you shared today. But yeah, hope you enjoy the rest of your week.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for having me.